1783. It was the very first balloon flight. And this story does get to Champagne, trust me, but it takes a minute to get there. And it was actually the very first form of manned flight as well. So before airplanes or anything else, hot air balloons were the first to fly. There's a couple of brothers called the Montgolfier brothers. They were watching smoke rise out of chimneys, and they thought if they could capture smoke, maybe they could fly. Their father had a paper factory. They started making small paper balloons. They burnt sheep's wool, wet straw. The little balloons float up in the sky. So they started making bigger and bigger balloons until they got to the point where they're like, this might actually work out. We might be able to do this. What happens if we do? If we put a person in a balloon and they go up in the sky, is there air they can breathe? Is it poison? They had no idea. They were from Paris. It was fairly flat and low there. So they decided on an experiment. They took a sheep, a duck, and a chicken, and they put them in a cage. They put a bigger balloon on it. They got the balloon buoyant. They cut it loose. They released it. It went up about 500 feet, a couple hundred meters, and it flew about 3 kilometers, about a mile and a half. They went racing after it to see if the animals were still alive. By the time they caught up with it, the balloon was destroyed. It was all cut up in little pieces on the ground. The cage was broken open. The animals were missing. They were like, what's happened here? So they went back towards the local village and they asked a few questions. And the villagers were like, yeah, crazy. This demon dragon thing, smoke, fire, went flying over the village. We raced out. We killed it. After it was dead, we found these animals in a cage, and we're having sheep, duck, chicken for lunch. You're welcome to stay. So, not quite the result they were looking for, but they sat down and they asked a few more questions. Turns out when the villagers found the animals, they were still breathing. We don't know what condition, but breathing was good, especially the sheep being the land animal. If it lived, then people could probably go up. The chicken, they thought, could fly so high. If it died, that meant higher up the air got worse. And the duck, they thought, should live because ducks fly high. With the results they got, they went back and told their father. He was excited for them, but he said, listen, if you guys are going to put people in a balloon, you actually should go talk to the king. You'll need his permission, and quite possibly, he might sponsor you.
Wouldn't you like to ride in my beautiful balloon? Wouldn't you like to glide in my beautiful balloon? We could float among the stars together, you and I, for we can fly up and away in my beautiful balloon. World's a nicer place in my beautiful balloon. It wears a nicer face in my beautiful balloon. We can sing a song and sail along the silver sky, for we can fly up and away in my beautiful balloon. Suspended under a twilight canopy, we'll search the clouds for a star to guide us on. If by some chance you find yourself loving me, we'll find a cloud to hide us, keep the moon.
So they got a meeting with King Louis XVI. He was pretty excited about the idea. It was Vive la France. Frenchmen should be the first to fly. Let's do this. Build me a balloon. So they got busy making a balloon. The king set a date, November 21st, 1783. And he invited his court. 6,000 people showed up on the day. He looked at the boys. He said, my court is here. There's my balloon. It's beautiful outside. Get it ready. Jump in. I want my balloon flight. He looked at the king and said, whoa, hang on a second. Small mistake. We said we'd build it. We never said we'd get in and fly it. We actually promised our father, after what happened with the sheep, duck, chicken, we wouldn't get in the balloon. He's afraid we might be killed. So the king thinks for a second and he goes, yeah, okay, no problem. I see that. You guys are the only ones who know how to build these things anyway. So I want to do more experiments. I need to keep you alive. I have an idea. Go to the prison, bring me prisoners. We'll put them in the balloon. If they live, it's okay. If they die, I have lots more. We can keep going. So they go off, drag up a couple prisoners, While they're doing that, the queen comes in. She catches wind of what's happening. It's Marie Antoinette at the time. She looked at the king and goes, "What do you think? This is a crazy idea. What happens if it works?" The balloon flies. It lands.
And they go away.
The prisoners escape. We look foolish. We just made prisoners the first people to fly. "Ah," says the king. "Yeah, you could be right. Fine. Back to the prison with those guys. So now what to do?" He looked at his court in front of him and he said, "Who amongst you would like to be famous? Who would like to be the first to fly?" Shockingly, no one steps forward. So he bribes them, a little gold, a small estate. The first man who comes up is a man named Pilatre de Rosier. It's significant in a couple ways. He becomes one of the first people to fly. And his nickname is Pilot, or pilot in French. So the name pilot in aviation actually comes from the very first hot air balloon flight. His friend, Marquis de Long, no cool nickname, jumps in with him. He's a French scientist. Off they go. Now, they had extra fuel. It was a bigger balloon. They had a little fire pit in the middle. So they fly a little bit further, let's say about 6 kilometers, about 3 miles or so, before they start thinking of landing. Now, remember, they're still burning. They think it's smoke. So they're using poor fuel source that's making lots of smoke. So they hit the ground hard. They can't stop the balloon as it descends, so they crash. They hit the ground so hard that they actually fall out of the balloon, and the balloon goes off again. It carries on for about another mile or so, crashing across the French countryside, bouncing, bouncing, bouncing. Every time it hits the ground, some of the fuel and fire spills over the side, lighting fires in the farmers' crops, convincing them all, demon, dragon, something evil, and once again, they all race out en masse to kill this thing. Lucky, the pilots had fallen out. They were wearing really heavy gowns and cloaks. They had masks and hoods on to protect them from the fire and all the smoke. So they looked at each other, covered in soot and ash, and went, "We need to get out of here. If they see us, they might kill us too." They race back and tell the king, "Flying is good. Landing needs some work. We're never doing this again. We're afraid we're going to be killed by the farmers and villagers when we land." So the king says, no, hang on. We will do more experiments. I will come up with a solution. And that's where champagne comes in. King Louis XVI was well known for his love of champagne. He had a cellar full of his own bottle and his own label. It had the French flag on it, and it had the royal seal. So what he said was, when you're flying and you're coming down to land, as the villagers are rushing towards you, throw bottles of my champagne out to them, and when you land, present the bottles to the landowners. They'll see the French flag. They'll know you're Frenchmen. They'll see the royal seal. 1, they'll think you're royalty. They won't dare kill you. And 2, they'll know the flight was actually sanctioned by me. So that's how the tradition of champagne and ballooning began. It's a peace offering for the landowners. Today, the animals we saw won't drink champagne, couldn't care. So we're going to drink it all. There's more at breakfast. Breakfast is about 15 minutes from here, where there is more champagne, tea, coffee, and lots of good things to eat.
Those giraffes are climbing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I want to see that.
Those giraffes.
Yeah.
Three little
Yeah, that was gonna be cute.
That was worth the price of admission.
So look at the cork.
So the steps are basically swings.
Yeah, if you catch the cork, it's a free glass of champagne. That was mine. All right, guys. Get a little bit in your glass. Eno's going to bring some mango juice around if you want that. It's a Serengeti sunrise, okay?
All right. That's the way to do it. These are little toes. Here it is.
So if we all said Maisha Marefu on 3, okay? Maisha Marefu. 1, I'll tell you after you say it. Ah! 1, 2, 3. Maisha Marefu. That means long life.